Good afternoon. My name is Robert Pine. I'm Program Director for the Mothi Center. I'd like to welcome you to this program, which is the third in a series of webinars to discuss refugee resettlement in America and here in Brown County, Wisconsin in particular. So this program is co-sponsored by Catholic Charities of the Diocese of Green Bay, Wisconsin Literacy, and the Mothi Center. The Mothi Center is an independent nonprofit on the campus of the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, dedicated to the promotion of peace, justice, and mutual respect, supporting individual and community flourishing while welcoming all cultures and faiths. The center's educational programs create space for curiosity, reflection, and respectful conversation, addressing vital concerns as we seek to move forward together. Wisconsin Literacy is a nonprofit statewide coalition of literacy agencies. They strengthen literacy statewide through expert training, personalized consultations, health literacy, workforce connections, and advocacy. Catholic Charities of the Diocese of Green Bay is an affiliate agency of the United States Catholic Conference of Bishops, one of the few national organizations authorized by the U.S. State Department to resettle refugees. Catholic Charities is the only agency managing initial resettlement and placement for the newly arrived refugees during their first 3 months in Brown County. And they collaborate with many other offices and nonprofits to provide extended support beyond that crucial 3-month period. Before introducing our guests for this afternoon, I'd like to note that we will have time at the end to address some of your questions, which can be submitted at any time using the Q&A or chat features at the bottom of your screen. So today we're going to be joined by Tara DeGrave, who is Associate Director of Catholic Charities of the Diocese of Green Bay, and Robyn Hallet, Northeast Regional Literacy Consultant for Wisconsin Literacy, and then also by Arash Asmar from COMSA, which is a local organization helping refugees with integration. So I want to begin with Tara. And Tara, good to have you. Welcome. Good to see you.
You as well.
So when we talk about refugee resettlement in Brown County, one of the first things people want to hear about is numbers. How many refugees have been resettled in Brown County in the last 3 years?
Over the last 3 years, Catholic Charities has welcomed about 325 individual refugees to Brown County over the last 3 years. So this year, we're at about 120 so far.
Okay, about 120 so far this year. So
Yeah.
that's more than the average then for the last 3. Now, when we talk about how people come and the different numbers, I recognize there are more people here than those 325, right? So people have come in a variety of ways to Brown County, and sometimes you know about them and sometimes you don't, right? Can you explain the phenomenon of secondary migration for
Yes,
our
absolutely. So, like Bob stated, as a resettlement agency, we're only aware of the number of refugees that are coming through the traditional refugee resettlement program. We're not aware of people coming through United for Ukraine, Welcome Corps, or secondary migration where they may have been welcomed by a resettlement agency in a different part of the country and then ultimately have decided to move to Brown County. Oftentimes that's for employment or family reunification, but we often do not know about those individuals until they come to our office requesting services or to another community service agency.
So back in our first webinar, when we were talking to Elise Cohen, she talked about several different ways in which refugees might come. The RNP, the resettlement and reception and placement program, United for Ukraine, which you mentioned, and then also some special parolees like the Afghan refugees who are coming to Brown County have been given a status apart from the normal refugee status through UNHCR, the UN High Commission for Refugees. So you know about the ones you said that come through UNHCR, the R&P, the Reception and Placement, the ones that come as special parolees, that also works through offices like yours, correct?
It used to.
Okay.
So with the a couple of years ago with the crisis in Afghanistan, that when humanitarian parolees from Afghanistan were really high, we were aware of all those numbers, and it ran very similar to the reception and placement program. Today, our Afghans that we are welcoming to Brown County are getting processed directly through the reception and placement program. So they are coming through with that formal refugee status now. However, Afghans are one of the groups that can be paroled through humanitarian parole at the border.
I see. Okay. And we're going to talk more
Those we don't know about.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about the border next time, especially what's going on down at the southern border. But I think one of the concerns that some people have is no one knows who these people are. No one knows how they're coming. And typically someone knows, and someone has formally welcomed them. Somebody has formally processed them, and they work with offices like yours in order to make sure that that there's a place for them when they come to town. Give us an overview of the kinds of things that you all do. Well, first, before we think about what you do with the resettled refugees, or in resettling refugees, rather, how are these numbers determined? Like, how many are coming? You say this year we've received about 120 so far, on 125. How is that number determined?
So typically each year we go through a capacity assessment. What we do is we meet with a lot of our community stakeholders to ask about capacity and to say, do we have the resources in our community, not just within Catholic Charities, but also other organizations like Wisconsin Literacy or COMSA, to say, do we have the community capacity to really welcome refugees and newcomers to our community at a higher rate than we currently are? So we actually just went through that process for our next federal fiscal year, which will start October 1st, where we met with stakeholders, gathered feedback. We also met within our staff and said, what can we as an agency confidently resettle in Green Bay with providing high quality services to them and making sure that we're meeting everyone's basic needs when they first arrive and are really being a welcoming community for them to thrive in.
Can you share that number with us?
Yes. So in the current federal fiscal year, which is federal fiscal year 2024, that ends September 30th, our capacity is 170. Like I stated, we're at 121 right now. We do think we're going to meet that capacity number. And then our capacity for the next federal fiscal year is 215. The reason that there's an increase is that there are a number of Afghans who are ready to come and travel over to the United States, and they're waiting in third countries, not Afghanistan, but many are in Germany and other countries around the world where they're ready to go and they're just ready to be resettled. So we increased to accommodate that influx of people who are ready to travel. So
the need is clearly there. You say there are a lot of people who are ready. They've been processed internationally so far. They're known. They're ready to be resettled. But there are some constraints on our side as you talk to these different agencies, things like housing, and you talked about some of the limited capacity that you have as a resettlement agency in Brown County. What are some of the major constraints on your capacity locally to welcome even more?
I think one of the biggest challenges is affordable housing. We simply don't have the volume of affordable rental units. to house all of our refugees in a timely manner. I think what we're doing as an agency and as a community as we're trying to come up with innovative ways to meet that need, whether it's for our refugee population or different demographic groups, but specifically for refugees, we have one full-time staff person who their whole job is dedicated to helping refugees be successful in housing, helping secure units and building relationships with different landlords and property management companies. So we've been successful there, but we don't want to increase too much because there isn't that capacity there because the inventory for affordable units is difficult. I think
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
you could ask your question because I was going to talk about something else.
Yeah. Just to back up a little bit again and think about the kinds of things that you all do and for how long. So we've talked about this some before, but just want to make sure that we restate it here. So the refugees that come to you through something like the reception and placement program through UNHCR and then the U.S. State Department, the Afghan parolees that are integrated into that same system, they come to you in response to the estimates that you've given. You say that we can take this many, and then they are sent to you. They have about 3 months, right, of federal support in order to get established, which is a really short time. And so it's all hands on deck for you guys in welcoming them and making sure that you have basic needs met. Can you walk us through the variety of services that you are simultaneously trying to provide during that 3-month window?
Yeah, so first and foremost, the staff are welcoming them at the airport and picking them up when they arrive in Green Bay. Then they're bringing them to, oftentimes we use temporary housing until we find permanent housing for them and can sign a lease. So we're finding shelter for them. We're providing groceries and all household necessities that they might need. We're doing different referrals and connections for different programs like Badger Care and Food Share and WIC and W2. And we're trying to really just surround them with all the supports that they need to help them be successful. And then simultaneously, other members of our team are meeting with them and creating resumes and teaching how to do job applications and helping them apply for jobs and go to interviews and get jobs. We try to do employment as quickly as we possibly can. As well as secure permanent housing. And then we have another staff person who's just working on all things health related. So they're teaching new arrivals how to schedule doctor's appointments and taking them for their first sets of doctor's appointments so that they can teach what it means to navigate our healthcare system in the United States, and then to also go to the pharmacy and go through that process. So there are, and while we're doing all of that, we're also doing some curriculum education. It's called cultural orientation, but it's really focused on cultural integration and what newcomers need to learn about our community. And then also it's a learning process of how to, we're setting up bank accounts and how to use a bank account and how to pay your rent and all of these things that oftentimes we take for granted. The staff are surrounding families with a team of staff. We're surrounding them with a team of staff and often volunteers to help them really be successful and thrive. Ideally, yes, that's a 90-day window. We do have many of our team members. We do have funding through the state of Wisconsin to really provide longer term supportive services to families related to housing, employment, and health.
In our conversation with Jill Drzwicki a couple of weeks ago, she works with JRS, or Jesuit Refugee Service in Rome. She was really emphasizing the resilience of refugees, that these are survivors. These are people who have made their way in the world in order to get to where they are. And they've worked really hard at that. And so they have worked to navigate a lot of systems. They've worked to navigate often several different countries in order to find their way here. Once they arrive and you're helping give instruction and they're ready to jump in, they no doubt also have some unusual needs, or particular needs, I should say. Many are going to be traumatized because of what they have experienced. They've left their homes under duress, and they've traveled under duress. So you're also doing some assessments and some initial care in that regard?
Yes, we are. As part of the health focus, we're looking at whole person health. So whether that's a physical health need, mental health need, a spiritual health need, and we're talking about trauma and then really helping to look at holistic wellness with people, and be supportive that way. So we are recognizing the trauma. One of the things as an organization, and I think across the state we're doing in resettlement work, is really trying to build up our refugee mental health care system and making sure that it is supportive and culturally responsive to the refugee community, because every demographic group is different and has different cultural needs with regards to mental health care. So we as an organization are really like trying to increase our competency and our mental health staff to really provide high quality services to our refugee community and be able to offer in-person care. But it definitely is an initiative that we're, as refugee services providers, we're paying attention to and trying to continue to improve that system.
So you mentioned to me a couple of weeks ago, you said that you're also seeing some new groups coming to Wisconsin, coming to Green Bay. You have the ones, again, just to review, the reception and placement, United for Ukraine, which is a special placement where they're finding local people who will welcome and assist Ukrainians who are escaping war. The special parolees that we know are coming right now from Afghanistan and integrated into the RMP programs. You mentioned one other, which is the Welcome Corps. Welcome Corps is when local hosts say that they too would be willing to help resettle groups, churches, families sometimes. A quick sense of numbers on that. Do you have any idea how many people are coming through Welcome Corps?
So Welcome Corps, so far in this, we don't have any Welcome Corps groups in Green Bay or in Brown County that we're aware of. The state does receive that information when Welcome Corps groups are approved. So there's been 7 different groups in Wisconsin that have welcomed newcomers through that program, and that's a total of 11 people statewide, but they are located in different parts of the state.
So in addition to all those, and in addition to secondary migration, where somebody might be resettled in Columbus, Ohio, and they have friends in Green Bay and they're going to make their way there, and then you learn about them after they arrive. So secondary migration is, again, people surviving, people finding a way and connecting with friends sometimes and relocating after they've been placed. But you said that you're seeing also some individuals who may be coming, again, forced migration from other countries, may be coming, being processed at the border and finding their way here. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so one of the groups that many of the community agencies are starting to see in larger numbers is the Haitian population. So they do have a special status granted by the Office of Refugee Resettlement to make them eligible for many refugee support service programs. and they are here legally in the United States, but because of what's going on in their home countries are no longer able to leave to stay. And so they're coming to the United States in search of, oftentimes when we're meeting with many Cuban and Haitians, they've found their way to Green Bay because they're reuniting with friends or family, or they have employment in the area already, which is really impressive. So we're, as community service agencies, we're all seeing kind of this influx, and where it's a noticeable increase in this population in our community, which is a wonderful thing. But people are securing housing, and they're securing jobs, and they're building their community. They're building community and really are becoming a part of our community. So that is a newer group that we've all started to see in the last few months.
It's fun to see the community evolve in that way.
Mhm.
To see those changes and to see new faces in the neighborhood and at the farmer's market and everything else.
Yeah.
So when we think about the individuals who've come through your agency, they're resettled, they're hopefully employed, they have access to medical care, and then they start some of the longer term process of getting familiar where we are. And I want to turn to Robyn Hallet, or invite Robyn to join us here. Robyn is the Northeast Wisconsin Regional Consultant with Wisconsin Literacy. And Robyn, as you think about some of the ongoing needs and challenges that your community, or that rather that your agency is seeing, you're mostly now working with people who they've gone through the Catholic Charities first 3 months, and then there's a handoff to some local agencies like yours that start providing some other services. Give us just a quick summary again of some of the things that you all do, and then after that, I think we're going to see a video that you provided.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. Wisconsin Literacy is a coalition of literacy organizations around the state. We're a nonprofit statewide coalition, and we provide literacy services support to the literacy organizations. So we help to strengthen literacy by providing expert training, consultation to literacy organizations, health literacy programming, workforce connections, and advocacy. So we help organizations that provide English language learning and adult basic education with capacity building, program support, like I said, health literacy, training, workforce, so all sorts of services that we provide directly to the literacy organizations. We don't serve learners directly at Wisconsin Literacy, but rather we help those literacy organizations to have the resources to provide those services.
I didn't tell you beforehand that I was going to ask this question, but it occurs to me as I hear you speak. Do you have any idea how many individuals are being served by that coalition?
Well, that's a really good question, and I unfortunately don't have an answer off the top of my head, but I can tell you that there are almost 80 literacy organizations around the state that are members of Wisconsin Literacy. Some of them are small, volunteer-only organizations who may serve a handful or 20-some students, and others are very large organizations with hundreds, maybe even thousands of students.
Well, I see Ashley Henricks with Wisconsin Literacy just answered that question in the chat. 11,000 adults and families being served by Wisconsin agencies in literacy. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Ashley.
So, Robyn, you and your team put together a video of some of the clients who are sharing some of their experience. So I think we're going to go ahead and see that now?
Yeah, so I would like to give credit to Literacy Green Bay. They are one of our member agencies, and they have prepared this video, and it features their students. So I hope you all enjoy seeing and hearing what the students have to say.
Better job.
Feel safe here.
I feel safe.
I have more freedom.
United States, a lot of job.
I feel safe.
More protection for kids.
United States is good. It's happy.
I like school.
When I come to United States, for me this little shock, because everybody is happy, everybody smile.
Learning to drive.
Not knowing English.
My family is far away.
The culture is but different.
Yeah, easy for me. United States, we don't know speak English.
It's hard to find a house.
The food is different.
Hard job, hard.
No family and United States.
Difficult for me. This a lot of paperwork, too much information for me. So it's scary, little hard.
All right. So we see some of the struggle, a lot of paperwork, trouble finding job, trouble finding housing, difficulty with the language. We can only imagine, as most of us in the US are not multilingual, how difficult it would be to land in a place where the language, everything is so much is unfamiliar. As we think about the kind of work that you all are doing with them, what are the typical timeframes for the various literacy programs? How long would somebody be involved in literacy learning in some of the agencies that you work with?
Yeah, that's a common question that we get, but it really varies on so many factors. As we kind of alluded to when Tara was explaining what the students, what the refugees are experiencing, initially, they are working very hard to find housing, to permanent housing, to find jobs. They, of course, need to support their family long-term, to get their children enrolled in school, to get the medical services that they need. So these are all immediate needs that they have. And many times the refugees want to learn English right away, but the reality of their daily lives is there's just not the time for it. But eventually, most of them do get enrolled in English classes or are assigned with an English tutor to help them to learn the language. And how long it takes is really, it's very individualized. It's going to vary a lot depending on the literacy level that they already have and their education level. Somebody who comes to the United States from a country that doesn't use the written language as frequently as we do, they're going to have a much more difficult time picking up the written language. They may learn to speak and to understand what they're hearing more quickly, but they need to learn how to hold a pen or a pencil. They need to learn how to navigate a keyboard. They need to learn the Roman alphabet. So it's going to take refugees in that situation a much longer time than, say, individuals who are coming from a country that has a strong education system. If they've had some high school education or maybe even have completed college, then they know studying techniques. They know how to learn how to organize their time. They know that they need to make a commitment to coming to class regularly or meeting with a tutor regularly. And students who are in a situation, maybe they work in an environment where they need to use English at work. That is really going to benefit them in the long term by putting them in a situation where they have to use their English to get their needs met. And they're going to learn much more quickly than an individual who works maybe in a job where they just do their work and they don't need to communicate with others in English very much. And then they're not going to get the practice that they need. So I can't give you an answer for how long it takes somebody to learn English.
Yeah. Well, that's a good explanation of some of the differences that people are experiencing. And especially when you think about the workplace, I know some workplaces like JBS and others, there was a JBS t-shirt I saw in the video, provide language instruction on site, translation and tutoring and assistive services in the community. And so I want to next bring in our friend Arash Asmar. Arash can tell a little bit about some of his own experiences with all of this. And so, Arash, it's good to see you, my friend.
Thanks. Thank you for having me here, Rob.
Yeah. So, as you hear them talk about the ways people came to the U.S. and then some of the things that they experience by the time they get to Wisconsin. I know you well. You're a friend, but I want to have you share a little bit of your story, enough so that we can place in context your local experience. So could you just take a couple of minutes and tell everybody about your journey?
Yeah, sure. So I used to work for USM projects in Afghanistan. So that's why I was eligible to have a special immigration visa. But I didn't apply at the first time. So after some years, I changed that job actually. And after some years, I was treated because I was working for the youth projects. So at that point, I decided to apply for this visa. And then it take 5 years to approve the visa. And in between, I had to move to a third country with my family because of several trades, and waited there to process my visa. So finally, I'm here with my family. We moved to United States in January 2022. And we directly came to Green Bay, to Bryan County. And we start, as all refugees do, we start from zero, living in a new community, new country, with new experience. So the settlement agency, the Catholic Charity, help us anyhow to get a house, to prepare some house applicants that we needed. And then I start working with this community center, which is called COMSA. Since then, I'm working with this community as a case manager, as a community navigator, to help back the community who are coming here, especially the Afghan community that I'm so many involved with them. Also, my family. Yeah, go ahead. So my family, my wife also start working with the Literacy Green Bay to help them, to help other refugees to understand a little bit of the language. And my kids start going to school, and now they are very happy that they are in school. So we kind of start everything from zero and beginning here, which was a very, very, I can say, a tough experience for us.
Sure.
And now here we are.
So you dropped a number there at the first part of your story, 5 years to process your visa initially. And so you had to relocate, you had to leave Afghanistan to find another place of safety and refuge and work. We talked last week, or a couple of weeks ago, about the 3 durable solutions for refugees. About one would be to return, which is not possible. Another to be integrated in the next country where they go for safety, which you navigated for a while, but then the third one, the more durable solution, is resettlement to a third country, which you did. But again, a long time in processing that visa with, I assume, significant uncertainty along the way, wondering if it would ever really happen.
Yeah, actually, the time that I was waiting for visa is quite different from the time that right now is happening, whatever is happening in Afghanistan. So the trait that I faced was so personal for me, and not only me, the other translators, the other workers with the US projects in Afghanistan or US Army. They had a little bit quite experience of traits, like receiving emails or even letters in their doorsteps or phone calls from the opposite side. But right now, as everybody knows, that the opposite side is in the power. So still, I have so many connections with my friends who are my colleagues that we work with together in these projects. And some of them are still hiding themselves, even changing their address repeatedly every week. And waiting for their case, of course. And
Sure.
even some of them are waiting for 7 years, 5 to 7, 8 years to get approved and come out from that Afghanistan. The time that I move out from Afghanistan was very easy to go up to that third country. But right now, that window is almost closed. So there's nowhere that they can go to hide themselves to a third country and wait for their process. That's a very difficult situation right now.
So when you came, you went to Catholic Charities. You were sent there, welcomed by them, and I know you've done continuing work with them. And if you could just describe, Tara already described a little bit of the kinds of work that they do. What did they do for you when you and your family arrived?
Yeah, I think Tara already explained that. So when we arrive in the airport, somebody from Catholic Charity received us, welcome us, and they take us to our temporary housing. And they already provided some groceries and some dishes and these things that we can cook and eat. They provided, the time that we arrived was winter, so they provided some blankets and these things as well. And we waited for a month or one and a half month to get settled to a permanent housings. I can say that the housing is always an issue in Brown County for the refugees, for newcomers. At that time, and also right now, it's a big problem that refugees cannot find houses very easily. But anyhow, we waited for sometimes, and then we got the house during our 90 days windows. whatever question I had from Catholic Charity, they try to answer me. Well, they help me to get the benefits, whatever benefits were we needed, like food stamps or Medicaids, like W-2 programs. Then they answered the questions they provided when we moved to our house. They provided everything that we needed in the house. Beds, blankets, and kitchenwares and everything, which I'm thanking Tara and also the Green Bay Brown County community, because they were very friendly, helpful, and very kind. So we, in no time, we found so many friends in Brown County, and I mean in Green Bay. And we become very close friends with the locals here. And at that time, we realized, me and my wife, that the people around Green Bay are very kind and very helpful. They help us too much. One family, one of these friend family helped me with all the steps that I require, like my driving license, enrolling my kids in the schools, even finding this job in COMSA. That family helped me with that. And
Tell us a little bit more about that. So you mentioned that your wife is working with Green Bay Literacy. So
yeah,
that's one of the agencies that Robyn and her team at Wisconsin Literacy are working with. So at Literacy Green Bay, I should say it correctly. And then you're with COMSA. We met through COMSA when I was on the board there. But with COMSA, you mentioned that you're giving back. You are assisting other Afghan refugee families, and then I know it's more than just the Afghan refugees that you're working with, but that's your primary focus. What are some of the continuing needs, some of the continuing experience or difficulties for the individuals that you're seeing at COMSA? So now you're primarily beyond that first 3-month window. They've been resettled. They're now being integrated into the community, helping to succeed. What are some of the things that you do with that community?
Yeah, so first I want to say that I am designated here to help Afghan community mostly, but I'm also involved in other programs that COMSA is providing with for the other communities like Somalis, like Ukrainians, like some of Congolese families here around the Green Bay. So the most difficult part after that 19 days windows is the first thing is that most of the refugees require to learn English, the language, which we have very close relationship with the literacy, that we are working together to get them somewhere. At least they should understand how to communicate with people, which is a very challenging point, is this one. So that language caused them to don't understand how to communicate with the landlords and solve the problems. For example, if they need a maintenance of their house, they still rely on us or on somebody, a friend who speaks English. They ask if you can help me with the maintenance of my house and to communicate with my landlord or something like this. And even some of family right now, even they cannot go and do the grocery shoppings. They need somebody to walk with them to help them to do their grocery shoppings. That all depends on language. And yes, literacy is also trying to provide more support that they needed. But that's a challenge which is still remain. The other challenge that we have in Brown County that Tara also mentioned that is housing. The newly coming refugees are not being accepted by landlords here or by the property managements because they don't have credit scores, they don't have rental histories in the United States. So that's why it's very challenging for newly families to find a house, a good house, to permanently stay there. That kind of challenges also they have problem with health, with the jobs, finding a jobs. I think you already know that most of the Afghan communities also is still working in the factories, which in the longer term it affects on their health, on their hands and.
It's really difficult work.
Yeah, it's difficult because the environment there is either it's freezing or it's very hot. So that affects their health. So they want to go and find easier job. But because of this language problems and other problems, like they have to have income, they cannot stop working. So that's why finding new job is a challenge for them. But still in COMSA, we are trying to help them on daily basis to reach to their goals. So that's what we do.
Yeah. I like the way you say that because again, we're talking about people who are resilient, who are problem solvers, who are survivors, who have found their way and often just need some more doors opened to help them find that way in new communities. So I'm going to ask Robyn and Tara to rejoin us here. And with all of you, we've heard some happy stories. We've heard of some successes, and Arash, you and your family clearly have represented one of those great successful resettlement and integration stories. But it's not always so great. And I know that many people experience something less than a welcome in our community. I don't want to put any of you on the spot to name any overly specific details, but what are some of the obstacles that you see in terms of our community attitudes that you have seen? Some of the refugees talked about how friendly everybody was. And Arash, you said that people are very nice. And I'm really glad to hear that that's been your experience, but I'm sure that it's also been your experience that some people haven't been very nice. What are some of the more disappointing things that you've seen so far in our community? And anybody, any of you can answer.
Well, from my experience, I would say people who say, why don't they learn English? And in many cases, they are learning English. It's a process. It takes a long time. And the confidence that a new language learner has in their ability to communicate in their new language is often quite low. Any of us who might be learning a language ourselves can realize that. So you might hear them speaking their native language, and that doesn't mean that they don't speak English. Of course, they're going to speak their native language with their family, with their community members, in their ethnic community, and to be patient with them as they are trying to learn English and, navigate the nuances of our language.
Arash, you were starting to say something as well.
Yeah, I was actually saying the same thing what Robyn says. Yeah, the language, as I mentioned, is a big challenges. Actually the biggest problem that most of people who came here are not educated even in their home language. So it's very, very difficult to ask them to come in a class and sit and learn English. So first, we have to go and learn them something in their own language, then they can, I mean, but we have some stories that there are some people are very, very good. They have very good progress in learning the language. Like there's a family that when they arrive at the first time, they even speak or didn't speak one word of English, and now the parents and the kids, they are speaking very, very clear English within these 3 years, which is a very good example of progress. But still, we have some families that, as I mentioned, that they still need help.
Yeah, landlords aren't accepting them because of the lack of credit and things like that. One of the things we talked a little bit about with Elise Cohen was that some make an economic argument for resettling refugees, saying that it's always strengthening the community and an economy to have immigration. But really, we also want to emphasize the moral obligation of refugee reception and placement, and of resettlement, to help those who have been helping themselves but need, again, some doors opened, and recognizing that these survivors sometimes need the assistance of a community that isn't asking so much what they can, how the community can benefit from them, but how the community can help. So when you again are describing your experiences, Arash, and you talk about literacy, you emphasize that. And Robyn, thank you again for saying this could take a very, very long time. One of the questions that came through the chat just a minute ago was, who handles resettlement after 90 days, after the first 90 days? And again, just to clarify some of the terms, the resettlement is that first block of 90 days. And that recognized resettlement agency is Catholic Charities. After that, we typically speak about integration and becoming more settled within the community, more thoroughly integrated. And it's organizations like COMSA and Wisconsin Literacy that are helping with all of that, in addition to helping with all the secondary migration as people move into the community. Did I get that right? Or do you have any clarification to add?
For clarification, so at Catholic Charities, we also provide refugee support services, which extends up to 5 years post arriving in the United States. So although COMSA and Wisconsin Literacy, they don't have the same time constraint that we do. Ours is up to 5 years post arrival versus and in our refugee programs, and then there is no time limit for like our immigration legal services program. But I think we rely very much on our community partners like Wisconsin Literacy and COMSA to help us surround newcomers for the duration.
And when you talk about those time constraints, it's really a financial thing, right? So the federal government will provide 3 months of resettlement funding and assistance. And then after that, more limited funding for that 5 years, often through the state, for individuals in tutoring and things like that. Right?
Correct.
Okay. So, all right. I think we're just nearing the end of our time. I want to thank you all for joining us. So Tara, Robyn, and Arash, always good to see you, and really appreciate the time that you have taken to enlighten us and help us understand what's going on with refugee resettlement in Brown County. So our next webinar in this series will take place on July 25th, also at noon Central. We're going to be joined by Doug Padgett, founder of Vote Common Good, and local asylum attorney Sarah Gadiri. We're going to turn our attention to what's happening at the southern border, where things are really confusing, trying to clarify the many different circumstances there and thinking about how best to respond. So you can register as you did this time at the Mothi Center website, and watch for links to that on Facebook and social media. But thank you so much for joining us, and I will say goodbye. Thank you.